and welcome to our main show episode here on the
Geek Buddies. Hey!
We're back at it with our main show this week, and there's so much to talk about in the world of geekdom. Some new movies coming out, a new Marvel trailer that's dropped, a new Star Wars trailer that's dropped, and some assessment of where we're going now after Venom: The Last Dance for Sony and these Spider-Verse characters live action-wise. So a lot for us to discuss here on the show, but let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Roca, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where in 2025, you're going to get to see me on 2 episodes of a show coming to Max that I get to shoot this week.
That's right. Dune Prophecy, the sequel. Let's see you in the sand.
Yes.
Shannon,
me and the worms.
Shannon McClung, founder of the Benny Gesserit.
I think you gals got something. You thought about teaming up?
Something special.
Hey, you keep that box away from me. All right. So anyway, the way the show works, for those of you who may be new, and thank you very much for taking a chance on us if you are new, is each of us brings up a geek news item. We talk about it amongst ourselves, take a couple of breaks, and then head on into our main topic. And our main topic this week is going to be our discussion of that Marvel upcoming trailer, Marvel Studios upcoming trailer for 2025, and also breaking down our thoughts now after Agatha All Along has finished, where we rank our Marvel/Disney Plus shows. So a lot to get into here on the show. But Michael, you start us off, man. Where are we going?
We are going to the world of IP development, everybody. Ooh, exciting. Look, we cover Marvel, we cover DC, we cover Star Wars, we talk Star Trek. Like, it is definitely a time where the thing that seems the surest bet in the world is IP that we know and love. And a couple studios are going big in IP development, and some in unexpected ways. Big news this week that the Lego Group, under its deal with Universal Pictures, has announced plans for 4 live-action Lego movies. 3 of them to be helmed by Jake Kasdan, who did Jumanji, Patty Jenkins, who we all know from Wonder Woman, and Joe Cornish, who did Attack the Block. Not a lot of specifics on what these films are. A couple of them are original stories. At least one of them is going to be based on the hit Lego brand Ninjago. But what the fuck is a Lego live-action movie? That is really the question I think that everybody has. When you think of the world of Lego, there are a couple things that are very specific to the brand. Most specifically, the look of the characters and the fact that the entire world is made out of giant bricks. So when you think of adapting some of these stories into the world of live action, it's definitely a head scratcher. But to be fair to Lego, as the rest of the animation industry and the entertainment industry is flailing around, they are just still going strong both in their entertainment and in the toy aisle. And there was a point in time where we all thought the idea of an animated Lego movie sounded weird, and they proved us wrong there. So I don't know what this means. They did just release under the same banner. They just released Piece by Piece, which is the Lego Pharrell documentary, which is already a very unique idea. So, gentlemen, Lego in the world of live action, is it going to step into the world of Barbie and Transformers and other brands that have made the leap, or is it going to feel like that Minecraft trailer? What do you guys think of Lego movies?
Chet?
As you already pointed out, when they announced that they were doing a Lego movie, it was like, how? Well, they ended up answering that question to some great box office receipts. That the Lego movie ended up getting a sequel. We got a Lego Batman movie. Since then, outside of Piece by Piece, there hasn't been a whole lot of action with Lego on the big screen, and thus far, everything that they've released has done pretty well. I mean, there was the expected step down for Lego Movie Part 2. Like, did it do as well as the first one? No. Was it as good as the first one? No. But it still got a pretty big audience. So it makes sense that there is still gold in them hills. Yeah. And they want to tap some of that. So it's
hello.
Hey yo. The Ninjago side, like, that is a very well established brand in Lego. Like we have some of our fellow animation writer friends who work with Lego a lot, and they've worked on several iterations of Ninjago. The interesting part to me is the fact that they're attaching these big directors, like Kaz, like Patty Jenkins, like Joe Cornish, to see what these folks are going to bring to the brand of Lego, I think is very interesting. Does that mean it's going to be good? No, but it does mean that they are taking, the studio is taking the endeavor seriously when you are attaching talent of this caliber. So will it be good? Maybe, maybe not. But again, they're not doing this on the cheap. Like they are going out to people that do have a lot of cred, especially in the geek world. So I think it could be very, very interesting. I'll be curious to see which one makes it to the screen first. If they go the Star Wars route, if any of them do.
That's a fair
also
point.
That.
Yeah. This is funny. And if you guys want to see a live reaction, we covered this on the hot mic and it broke just before we started the show. And Jeff's reaction, that he started talking about it like this all made sense until I said to him that it was live action and he did not understand. His brain broke for a bit. And I think Michael kind of alluded to that in the idea of, why are we doing a live action Lego movie? Most Lego movies are a Lego version of something we've seen either animated or live action brought to the Lego version. That's kind of the joy of Lego and the fun of seeing the Lego version. So going the other route, I think is the other direction rather, is an interesting conversation. Will they be like bricked? Will they have these kind of look of Lego? Will they do the slow turn? Like how is it going to work live action? Because it doesn't seem to make sense to me to go this route. That being said, it's a curious combination of directors. Jake, I imagine that red one is going to suck a big fat one and not going to do well. It's not a coincidence that Jake was like, oh, a sequel to Jumanji, let me sign up. Oh, a live action Lego, let me sign up. It's not a coincidence. You have to always be aware of how Hollywood works. Patty Jenkins certainly coming off of the Wonder Woman 3 debacle. Is she not on it? And then Wonder Woman 2 not doing well. And then the Rogue Squadron thing kind of falling apart. Her name is a little bit not that strong right now. And Joe Cornish hasn't done shit for 5 years. So these are an interesting combo, other than, I mean, theatrically, he had a TV series. So this is an interesting combo of directors. That being said, when these directors bring their best, it's a lot of fun. That first Jumanji film was great. The first Wonder Woman film was a lot of fun. And I thought Attack of the Block was a fantastic film that launched two good actors in Jodie Whittaker and John Boyega. So there is some positivity that could happen here out of this. So I think they saw some damaged directors a little bit in terms of brand or reputation, and we're like, well, come on in, let's have some fun. And they were more than willing to jump into the mix and see what they can create. That being said, as Shannon said, we'll see if any of these movies see the light of day.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's the obvious, to the point that I hope they don't do it, but there's the obvious, we start in a Lego universe and we meet Lego characters, and through some kind of means, these Lego characters come to our world and all of a sudden they look real, but in our world, you can't build whatever you want, and so it's the whole journey. Like, there's definitely that version of the movie that could easily happen.
Sure.
But I mean, Jumanji's an interesting example of a movie that really, without going into like 8-bit graphics, kind of captured the spirit of playing an RPG video game, like with drop-down menus and NPC characters, and it was really tongue-in-cheek. So, we've definitely seen movies where this can work. And I think what's interesting about this from a bigger kind of business proposition from the Lego company is if they are successful in this, and they can successfully expand the Lego brand into something that includes live action entertainment, they're already a juggernaut. Like, they're already one of the biggest toy companies in the world, just because kids still and adults still play with Lego today as much as they ever did, whereas other things like action figures and other stuff like that has kind of fallen off. So if they can successfully make this jump and expand the brand to mean live action as well, I mean, there's nothing that can stop them. So it's going to be, and also I think their deal with Universal is mostly like a distribution deal, which means much like Marvel, Lego is a company that is kind of autonomous. They get to make a lot of their own creative decisions, and they make enough money that they can back that up with saying, fine, we'll just pay for it. So, not that they can pay for everything on their own, but like they are in a position where they do get to call the shots. And the last thing I'll say about it is in the Ninjago category, that's the one that seems the easiest. Because Ninjago, in addition to being Lego brick characters, a very specific look, Ninjago over time has built a very compelling mythology that fans are very, very invested in. So that's the one out of all of them that I'm like, okay, great. You're just going to tell that story in live action. Kids already have grown up loving these characters. You cast a bunch of like really big names as those characters and kind of do a version of that story. That's the one that makes the most sense. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that first, but I'm very, very intrigued by all of it. That being said, they are not the only. Oh, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I just want to throw in. I mean, but I also think we have to be aware of the box office reality, right? Like that first one did really well. The second one, not so much. Ninjago, barely a scratch, and then the Pharrell Williams thing fell apart. Box office wise, is a bomb. So you have to ask these questions: Is this going to work? And even if it does work, are people actually going to come see it? So there is a little bit of concern on that end as well, that, the box office right now doesn't look good for the Lego theatrical releases. And I wonder how that's going to affect it when they go live action. So throw that into food for thought,
No, absolutely. But I mean, I think if you are sitting at Lego, and you could argue it both ways. You're sitting at Lego and you're saying, look, the last few things didn't work. We tried this documentary format. That didn't really work. We're doing fine in TV. We're doing fine with our toy products. Like we're doing fine in those categories. How do we really crack this movie thing? Oh, well, if this isn't working, maybe we do go live action. It's a complete swing in a direction that nobody's expecting. That could work either way for them. So I think you're right. That is the big question, but it will remain to be seen. Meanwhile, over at Warner Brothers on the IP development front, there's rumors that they are in early stages of developing a Game of Thrones feature, a movie that takes place in Westeros at some point in time. It is early days. It is early days. There's no one attached to this. This is all just sort of speculation and early development. But again, Game of Thrones is sort of in a weird place. Game of Thrones was the jewel of Warner Brothers and HBO. It was a thing that was the golden egg. We were all obsessed with it. And then, boy, oh boy, did they crack that egg in the worst possible way with that final season, to the point that we were all kind of done with Game of Thrones. And although House of the Dragon came along, and I think has re-sparked a lot of interest, has proven that there is still gold in those hills. Like there is a compelling story to be told in Westeros. And if you tell a good story, audiences will respond. It hasn't quite reached the success of Game of Thrones for HBO and Warner Brothers. And so now they're looking at, look, who knows if George R.R. Martin is ever going to get that last book finished. So everyone's waiting around for that. Like nobody knows what's going on there. Are they going to do the Harry Potter route and decide, oh, let's retell the same story we told on HBO, but in feature-length films with a brand new cast? Are they going to go back and tell more stories at different points in Westeros' history? Are they going to say, fuck it, let's tell stories 100 years after Game of Thrones? Like, nobody really knows. So I guess the real question here is, I know that the three of us are all pretty big fans of House of the Dragon. I think that won back a lot of respect from the three of us, and doing those spoiler reviews has been a ton of fun. I never thought that I would be invested in Westeros again, so I'm grateful to the show for that. Do we have the capacity for more? Are we interested in more stories in this universe? Like, what do you guys think? How are you feeling about it? Johnny, let's go to you first.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because there's not that many TV shows that have jumped to feature films and been successful. Certainly you can cite Downton Abbey, but show me the budget for that versus Game of Thrones. It's not going to be anywhere near it, right? And so there has been examples of the jump, but it is rare. Even the X-Files, right? The first film did decent. The second film bombed. And so you just don't know what you're going to get. That being said, I'm excited by the possibility because what's the big complaint coming out of this season? It was we didn't get the big battle. Why? Because Zaslav said you got to cut it from 10 to 8. We got to push the battle to the third season. We can't afford it. We can do it for the third season, not the second season. So there is a excitement that they could validate spending the money on a Game of Thrones movie because you can show the massive battles and what have you. My concern is character development. My concern is the budget. My concern is who you're going to get to shoot this. Is this Sapochnik transferring over? Are you going to get another director from Game of Thrones? Are you going to bring in someone new who's going to try to do it for the theatrical approach? And will you get the same kind of effect from a 2-hour movie that you get from watching an 8-episode or 10-episode series of the best of Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon? That's a concern I have. And we've got a new series coming next year, I think. So yeah, that's my concerns. I'm excited by the possibility. I just have some reservations on how they might approach it. And do I trust WB and Zaslav to get this right, to make the transfer to theatrical? I don't know that I do.
Yeah, big old question mark. Because the advantage that Game of Thrones and House of the Dragons has had is the advantage of long form storytelling, that you get so invested in these characters. You start off in season 1 with a character like Jaime Lannister, you absolutely despise. As you go forward, you find out, oh, you're the son of a real son of a bitch. Oh, and you had to do this thing. And people, like, the joy of getting to know these characters is the time that you get to spend with them.
Yeah.
So when those big moments happen, when those big battles happen with people that you care about on both sides of the fence, I don't know if you will get that from a 2-hour movie. Now, you certainly can, but I feel like when a character is switching sides for 2 hours, it feels a little whiplashy.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that that's what they're going to do. Also, it's like, is this going to be an adaptation of something George R.R. Martin has written? Is this going to be a completely original story? Is this going to be set, like, whenever I hear stories about stories being set after season 8 of Game of Thrones, like they're like, oh, the Jon Snow story. It's like, what story? Walls down. Walls down. It seems like everyone kind of gets along, unless you're going to be, kind of retreading familiar ground. It's like, oh, nope, we've decided against it. We don't like you anymore. So it will be what is the story? What is the tale you're spinning right now?
Right.
I think to take the thing that has worked for you so well. I mean, again, you can argue the quality of those last couple of seasons, but the thing that has worked is the time you have spent with these characters and how invested you get in all of them. And again, I don't know if you get that in a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's interesting with all of these stories is, like, you see why there's a reason that comic book franchises and comic book universes work really well for features, because you have 60 years for both Marvel and DC, roughly 60 years of stories and a bench of characters that is at least 20 to 30 deep, easily. So when you're like, we need to continue this on, we need to tell more stories in this universe, but we can't use these characters, or these characters aged out, or these characters are dead, you bring in more characters. I mean, that's mostly what we're going to be talking about with a lot of the Marvel stuff that was dropped this week.
Right.
What happens with a Lord of the Rings or a Westeros or a Harry Potter is there is or Star Wars, really. I mean, even with Skeleton Crew, you can see Star Wars is struggling with the same thing. Like, George Lucas created a story. J.R.R. Tolkien created a story. George R.R. Martin created a story. And it's done. And so you can go back to other stuff they wrote and sort of adapt it. But once you've done that, which both Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones have done, you do have to go, if we want to continue to play in this world, we've got to come up with new stuff, but we don't. Either the person who created that thing is no longer attached to it, like with George Lucas, or the person who created that world we don't want to deal with, like J.K. Rowling, or George R.R. Martin needs to finish his book, and he's probably going to do that for the next 30 years of his life. Like, so, like, as you start to go, we need to create more stories, at some point you have to go, we need to bring someone in who's going to tell original stories in this universe, and then you run the risk of fans going, this doesn't feel right. So it's the big leap that they're all trying to do. And if they can do it successfully, they've got a runway to tell stories in a universe that we all love for the next 15, 20 years. But if they don't, like Benioff and Weiss found out, oh, you can't tell a complicated story like George R.R. Martin did. You really dropped that ball, and audiences turned on it like that.
I like that you call him George R.R. Martin. Or I thought you said Jar Jar Martin. I think that's
Jar Jar Martin. Jar Jar Martin. That really explains why he's having a hard time. He's like, Misa got to write a book. this writing is bomb bad, everybody.
I think the other element of this is also how one of the joys of Game of Thrones is all of us doing the research on these characters and these stories in between the episodes. You're not going to be able to do that in a feature film. So you hope it's going to be able to give you the weight of the story and the weight of these characters and what's going on and presented, which is something uniquely they have not done in Game of Thrones. I think one of the essential things they do is know that fans are going to go and do their own research and watch people who've read all the books to break down what the differences are between the books and the adapting and what they're adapting. So will this be original content? That is something you keep alluding to, Michael, that I think is going to be interesting to see what they end up landing on. Or are they taking a character and just expounding on the character and going in different directions? And will they keep George R.R. Martin off a blogger thing to complain about it? So yeah.
Well, that's going to be the challenge. No, look, somebody comes into Warner Brothers and says, "Hey, Bran is ruling Westeros, and he has no idea why he's the one who was chosen. And a bunch of shit has started happening. There's a lot of unrest, and Arya has to come back and do this, and then Sansa does this, and this is a whole story about the Stark children all coming back together. And I've got this whole 3-movie arc about the Stark children. And if they crack it, despite the fact that you're right, we no longer get to do the research as original. If they crack it and we accept it as an audience, and we go, holy fucking shit." Bran becoming king at the end of Game of Thrones was the stupidest goddamn thing I've ever seen in my life. But now I'm into it, and now I fucking love this story. And if they can find the person that does that, then they've done it.
Yeah. All right. Interesting stuff for sure. We will take a look at all of that as it happens. Because will this Game of Thrones movie happen? We don't know. Ask Naomi Watts about getting into a Game of Thrones series and it not happening. So there's all kinds of issues that come with that. So let's take a break. Mike, you're artifacting a little bit, so you might have to go in and come back out. But while we're doing the break, see if you do that, and we'll be right back right after this.
On the big screen, on the big screen, on the big screen.
We'll wait for our buddy to come back in. There he is. Hopefully he's in a better place. Oh, there he is.
A better place technically, a better place emotionally.
Artifact this.
Oh, there it is. Wow. Well said. Wow. Well, speaking of flipping people off, let's take a look at the reactions from 2 of the Geek Buddies to Venom: The Last Dance. Those are not strong reactions. Let's bring the third Geek Buddy. Yeah, let's all around and their feelings on it. So that's what we're talking about here. Venom: The Last Dance. This is an interesting situation because as we are recording this right now, Venom: The Last Dance, the third Tom Hardy-led Venom series, kept its #1 spot at the box office over this weekend, taking in $22 million in its second weekend in theaters, according to the Wrap here. So it is still somewhat making money, but if you look at it overall, it failed by its projection by $14 million of what it was projected to hit last weekend, its opening weekend, and it came in at $40 million less from the second installment on its opening weekend. Overall, internationally, it hit what it was aiming for, 125, but this is a film that's clearly petering out only because it's a weak box office weekend that it is still staying at #1 overall here. So, gentlemen, first of all, what are your thoughts on the movie? And second of all, is there any redemption here on the box office side of things for this movie? Because we have Craven like I don't know, 3 weeks from now, for God's sake. So, what are your thoughts here? Shannon, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it wasn't good, but you know what? Neither were the first two, in my opinion. We were before Vogel and I went into the theater. We stopped at the bar and grabbed a drink, and the bartender at the movie was just kind of like, "Yeah, I hear it's not good, but I really like the first two." It's like, well, that's not a ringing endorsement. The movie, like as soon as it started, we kind of looked at each other like, "Oh no!" But the contrast between seeing it, because it wasn't an empty theater, there were people there.
Oh,
The
I'm sure.
contrast between the reaction of the third one versus versus when we saw it the first time.
Yeah.
Or the first one, excuse me. And there were people laughing at jokes that I thought were bad, at a movie that I did not enjoy. And I don't know what the difference is if your normal moviegoer is just sort of like, yeah, okay, I've kind of seen this shtick, and I kind of want something a little bit not even elevated. I mean, even from like from a regular moviegoer point of view, like, to me, I'm like, this just isn't interesting. Like, I don't care about anything that's happening. They have their pseudo in-game moment. And I'm like, God, if you are a fan of this franchise, maybe this is really doing it for you right now. Like, they have those beats kind of baked into the movie where it's like, if you like seeing this character, look who's popping up. If you like this moment, look what's happening. But at the end of the day, I'm like, this was just a law of diminishing returns. And that first movie, I mean, definitely on the financial side, but even on the creative side, I'm like, I don't know which is worse, 2 or 3. I think 1, I'm kind of like, okay, there was kind of a movie there, but it just wasn't, it wasn't good. And they showed the trailer for Kraven, the Red Band trailer, with all of the blood and yeah. I mean, I feel like there were all these stories that maybe Null was going to be the bad guy in Spider-Man 4, and I'm kind of like, I kind of hope not, based off of this. So yeah, like I was not a fan, but I do like going to see a matinee and having a drink with my buddy. So that was nice.
Yeah, that's true. Michael, your thoughts on this film and your thoughts on this box office return. Is it fool's gold that it's still number 1 and second weekend out?
I mean, it's number 1 barely because nothing else really broke through this week. And a drop off, what is it, a 50% drop off, which isn't bad for a comic book movie. But when you had the opening weekend that Venom had, it's not great.
Yeah.
I mean, this movie is going to be the least successful of the 3 of them by a long shot. And look, I think it's just proof that it's about sustainability. When Venom 1 came out, and I remember very clearly us not liking it. And a lot of people are like, oh, you're just taking it too serious. It was fun. It was a good time. I got to see Venom on the big screen and I love him. And you're like, that's great. Like, if you love a character, you get to see him on the big screen. You got just enough of like Venom violence. Great. And then the second movie came out, didn't do as well. You're like, oh, okay, a little carnage. And you're like, and it's like a horrible movie. I mean, the story is barely cohesive. And you had less people saying, oh, but it was still a good time. Oh, it's stupid, but it's fun. And with the third one, this is the problem with Sony. It's like, yes, there are characters that are so beloved, and Venom is absolutely one of them, that you actually put Venom on the big screen with some visual effects, and we get to see the symbiote take control of somebody, and then Tom Hardy sits in a lobster tank and eats lobsters, and you're like, great. But because there was never a real story there, because they never really dug in and figured out what this was, apart from like, here's some fun shit to do, it doesn't sustain itself. And that is pretty much the lesson that Sony needs to take away from this. I mean, look, Agatha Harkness is not as popular a comic book character as Venom is.
Yeah.
But the way that Jack Schaefer and Marvel treated Agatha Harkness between WandaVision and Agatha all along, and going, what is her story? What is her background? Maybe she had a relationship with death. Maybe let's do this. Oh, let's dig into her son. This is a show about trauma. There's a whole bunch of things where you're like, oh, this character has come alive, not just for for the 5 fans of Agatha Harkness that have always existed, but for people who never knew who Agatha was. Whereas Venom, they took a character that is the most popular Spider-Man villain and have turned him into something where you're like, okay, it's gonna be great. I don't care. And like, that's kind of the thing. It would be better if I hated it. I don't even hate this movie. It's not good enough to hate. It just exists. I was bored. So I think that for Sony, it's like, you just can't, you clearly aren't capable of doing this. You didn't do it ultimately with Venom. It petered out. You didn't do it with Morbius. You didn't do it with Madam Web. I am guaranteeing you they didn't do it with Craven. So stop. The lesson here is stop.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they just announced a possible Silver Sable movie, possible Black Cat might be back on the horizon here. So I think they should listen to you and do a restructuring from top to bottom. No offense to Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, but he should be far away from this stuff. And it's very weird for me to be on the other side of the Transformers, Fast and the Furious conversation. It's very strange with these movies because logically, I should enjoy these movies, and I thoroughly do not. And I think, Mike, you nail it. I don't hate the movies. I'm just disappointed. Every time I go in there, I go, it's like, for me, I make a sports analogy. It's like recruiting a bunch of players and then hiring the worst coach to coach your star players, and they just underperform every week because they're not coached by the right person. And I feel the same way here because the amount of talent in all three of these movies is really good. And they waste them. They really do waste them. Tom Hardy being the number one. Yes, it's interesting and it's fun. He's a good actor, so you enjoy the interactions with him and Venom. But it also is very weird and off-putting, and there's no real place to put stakes in the ground to connect to this character fully. And I'll tell you this about the third one. It was the worst of the three, in my opinion, because you brought in Chiwetel Ejiofor, you brought in Juno Temple, you brought in Rhys Ifans, you brought in Alana Ubach, you brought in a lot of really good talent, and then gave them almost nothing to effing do in the whole movie. The Juno Temple, that's about as surface as a Lifetime movie, her backstory. Chiwetel Ejiofor, even less so. Then you waste Stephen Graham, and what was Stephen Graham's point in the whole fucking movie? It makes no sense. Rhys Ifans stole the movie from everybody. He had the funniest scenes across the board, and you criminally underused Alana Ubach. And I say funny as a comparative term, I guess, objective term, I guess, as I would think. But they wasted Alana Ubach as well, gave her almost nothing to do, and that's one of those most supremely talented women on the planet. So to me, top to bottom, the story holds no weight. And at the end, I will say the third act worked because the fights were great. That was very well choreographed. Kelly Marcel, that was a really good job, but that's the last 15 minutes of the movie. Everything leading up to it puts no emotional stakes in the ground. So you're just along for the fucking ride until this thing is over. But, yeah.
I think that, sure, I think the last 15 minutes of the movie I think the visual effects teams who worked on that last 15 minutes did a very nice job. Yeah. But because there's no there, there's no there. Like, I was like, okay, right. I don't care. We live in a world where we can see wonders on screen every weekend. So seeing a bunch of symbiotes fight, I'm kind of like, all right. And look, if I squint my eyes and take a very, very strong edible, there is a good idea in here, like the Eddie symbiote buddy cop. It's let's do Lethal Weapon where one of them's a symbiote, and like doing the PG-13 Venom who like is always wanting to, like, there's something about that Venom personality, even though I don't think that that's really the best potential Venom that there is for movies. There's something about this goofy Venom that's like, oh, I want to eat them. Oh, I love this chicken. Like, there is something funny about that, and there is a stronger story that if you really dug into the emotion of the symbiotes and everything else. But by the time you got to this, like when you open up a movie and Null goes, we talk a lot in Agatha reviews and Penguin reviews about exposition and good exposition and watching shows, which both Agatha and Penguin have really great expository scenes. And then you get to Venom 3 and the opening of the movie is, there is the Codex, and the Codex will free me, and so we must go out and find the Codex, but I can't leave here, but you can leave here, my children, so go find me the Codex. And I'm like, well, I am already out. I am out. I'm out. I don't care. This is dumb.
The exposition was ridiculous. Why are you handing me all this out of nowhere? You know?
I don't even want to talk about this movie, and then to go, okay, well, the Codex that frees Null exists because we died, but then we came back, and then because of that, the symbiote and the person who the symbiote is attached to create the Codex, and so we have the key, but the monsters can only see the key when I venom out, so let's not venom out, except when we have to venom out, and then apparently Dancing with Mrs. Chen in Vegas counts as absolutely having to venom out, even though they fully know the monster's gonna get them. I'm like, I can't.
I mean, and again, spoilers, if you really want to go see this movie, tune out for 1 minute.
Oh, please. Yeah.
During the post-credit scene, when
Oh,
Noel's like, oh, your guardian is gone. Now nothing can stop me. He's like, what? Wait, so you needed Venom to get out of the prison. Now that Venom's gone, you can attack. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and again, another reason why I'm with you, Shannon. This should not be the Spider-Man 4 villain. No matter what Sony says to, I don't care if Sony kidnaps Kevin's kids or his family members. Do not put Null in the movie that is connected to the Null that we saw in Venom that is connected to Venom. Do not put Null in Spider-Man 4. That is nonsense. Or if you do, completely recast it, completely reapproach it, for God's sakes, because that was useless.
Man. It ain't happening.
Yeah, I hope not, man. I hope not. All right. Anything more to say on this one? Are we good? Is there more to talk about? Do you guys want to address the box office? Does anybody care about it? Or shall we move on?
The box office is reflective of everything we just said.
Again, a reminder. And another one. All right. Anyway, let's take another quick break, and then we'll jump into. No. Let's keep going, Shannon. Let's move on to what we're going to talk about here with a trailer. What dropped here?
Trailer. That's it. When you have a trailer from a Star Wars property drop, sometimes you can just devote the whole section to that property. So yeah, we got the second trailer for Star Wars Skeleton Crew. That first trailer came out, had those Amblin vibes. A lot of people had thoughts about it. The second one came out, and I imagine the folks that had thoughts had even more thoughts, because you have, again, a very 1980s feeling trailer. You have Major Tom playing in the background. We're getting more of this world where Skeleton Crew takes place. We have a real swashbuckling vibe. Jude Law has a flintlock blaster.
Wow.
There is a lot in this. Like, they really lean into the pirate vibe of this show. Like, not just the fact that there are pirates, and like, we've seen pirates in Star Wars before. Never quite pirates that are like, "Arr!" But definitely the flintlock blaster. Why your blaster would have a curved handle, like, it doesn't matter. It's looks cool and it's fun. It doesn't make sense why you would have a blaster be a crossbow either, but it also looked cool. I enjoyed this trailer. I do have some thoughts, but I want to throw it over to you gentlemen first, because I think I might be on the other side of some of these arguments. Mikey, why don't you take it away? What did you think of our second look at Skeleton Crew?
I think that half of the Star Wars fandom imploded when this trailer came out. I think they heard a actual song that exists in our world, needle dropped onto this trailer, and even though that song was in Huttese, I think they absolutely lost their shit. I think hearing Major Tom in a Star Wars trailer really broke them, but I loved it. It was the exact right vibe. This was such a 1980s trailer that I'm like, It feels like they made this trailer specifically for me. I'm really into the vibe. Look, I think we talked about this several times over the past few weeks with the Rey movie and all the problems with the response to the Acolyte, with Star Wars as a fandom. Star Wars needs to break free of Star Wars. They need to figure something out. Everything we're talking about with the other IP, like with the Lego stuff, with the Game of Thrones stuff, like Star Wars is in this place where they need to break free to have the freedom to tell new stories. And Skeleton Crew, if it works, is a big step in that direction. If it doesn't work, it's just getting thrown on the pile of, does Star Wars even work anymore? Like the fans are never going to be happy. But I kind of think it's cool that they're taking so many big risks here, not just with the music in the trailer, but the entire suburban vibe of everything, going into this very Goonies, pirates, booby traps, Indiana Jones kind of vibe in the Star Wars universe. Like, it looks like a lot of fun. I think the characters are compelling. My big question, although I do think this trailer starts to maybe hint at the answers, is, well, what does this have to do with the rest of the Star Wars universe? Like, this looks great, but like, could this just be any space movie? Why Star Wars? What's interesting about this is the planet that they come from, which is very clearly outside of what we're used to seeing in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
The more that these trailers go on, it seems like there's a big secret here. This planet seems like it's kind of off the beaten path from the rest of the galaxy, and the characters don't seem familiar with the rest of the Star Wars galaxy. And I think the fact that it feels so different is kind of not a problem, but like actually there's a reason for it. I think there's a reason that these kids' parents don't want them fucking around with stuff and exploring. And I think when they get off planet and go to that first space station, and the reveal that they have Old Republic credits, I think is also a big indicator here. Like, I think that this isn't just, oh, a bunch of suburban kids on the Steven Spielberg planet went and had a pirate adventure. But I think that we're going to delve a little bit into the New Republic trying to like make peace after Endor, and what this means for the bigger Star Wars universe. And I think there's going to be some cool kind of connections there. So I think if they tell a really fun story and they nail this vibe and can connect it back to the bigger Star Wars universe and make it feel like it's a big part of Star Wars-ness, they could do it. They may or they may not. It may be horrible, but based on this trailer, I'm very excited.
Johnny, you ready to sign up for a skeleton crew?
Let me tell you something. This isn't my age group, yet this totally worked for me. I mean, this was such a great, as Michael said so well, 1980s adventure trailer. This is my wheelhouse. Yes, I didn't like Goonies, but I like Stand By Me. I like these other films. They Lost Boys. I like these other films that came out in the 80s that were about adventures with kids dealing with adult shit. And I like that energy. I like that vibe. This one had it all. I really was caught up in this from beginning to end. My reaction is up if you want to see me react to it. But some of these shots here, this is fucking badass. I love this shot. I love that it's two kids in detention. What are you in for? What am I in for? All right, let's figure this out. What adventure do we go on? What about Old Republic credits? And there was a lot of shades of New Hope, homages to New Hope that I thought worked for me. Having a Jedi, I guess, is what Jude Law is. Save these kids from a bar full of different creatures. Very similar to A New Hope. Getting a hologram message at the end of the trailer. Very similar to A New Hope. Going on these different adventures. As I said, this very much looks like, sitting in the Millennium Falcon. That has shades of A New Hope. So to me, there was a lot here that felt similar to Star Wars, that I really enjoyed, but also in a 1980s point of view. So for me, it worked. And I know other people didn't work. And who the fuck is complaining about Major Tom? That's such a perfect thing to use. It's a 1980s song. They are trying to put you into a 1980s vibe. But I will say this, the baddest part of the trailer was the surprising look of Tunde Adambimpe. I hope I'm saying that right. His pimp-ass glasses, like, they were badass. I'm like, that was more anachronistic than anything else I saw in this damn trailer. So for me, I was like, oh, man, where am I going to get those glasses in the future? I like those glasses. But I will say this, the complaints about it, what you brought up, Michael, I don't need it to connect to the bigger Star Wars. I could give a shit if it connects to the bigger Star Wars universe. I don't need it. I don't care about the blade or the whatever, the bow on the handle. I don't give a shit. Give me a fun fucking show that I can enjoy kids on an adventure and they discover shit in Star Wars. And if it doesn't even connect up to the larger universe, I don't need it to. So for me, this made me feel like this is a standalone thing that we can have some fun with. So I like that in the trailer.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thought as you, Johnny. Like, I don't need this to hook up to a bigger story. Like, Star Wars is a big universe. And sometimes there are going to be adventures that are completely isolated from the rest of the universe that we're used to. Now, some people are not going to be okay with that. Some people, like, if you're doing something in Star Wars, you want it to feel Star Wars.
Yeah.
The fact that it does feel young, but also, this is the type of trailer that I would have seen in the 80s. As an 80s kid and lost my mind.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
So the fact that they are actively reaching out to a younger audience. I mean, again, I think this is how you sustain your brand.
Yeah.
Is the movies, they all exist, but the active attempt to connect with that younger audience, I think, is really smart. The two things that make me cautious.
Okay.
One is the recent output from Lucasfilm. Like, you can't deny that outside of Mandalorian season 1, season 2, and Andor, their record is a little spotty. And so that is the one concern, because I saw the trailers for The Acolyte and I'm like, I'm in. The other concern are the performances of the kids. Now, directing kids is hard. John Watts historically has been very, very good at it.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the trailer from the main two kids that I'm like, they're going to be fantastic. That doesn't mean they're going to be bad, but ultimately the majority of the story responsibility is going to rest on the shoulders of those kids. So if you get good kid actors, if you have a director who is able to pull those performances out, I think it can be a hit. If you get kid actors that are like, again, Lucasfilm historically doesn't do great with kid actors.
Yeah.
If it goes to the latter, then I think there could be an issue. I mean, at the end of the day, Jude Law, this is Academy Award nominated actor. No one's worried about him. But he will only be able to do so much if you did not cast as strongly as maybe you could have. So that's what I'm cautious about right now.
Yeah.
Let me clarify what I was saying about being connected to the Star Wars universe, just to be super clear, because I don't fully agree with you guys, but I just also don't think that I don't need like a fucking somebody's related to Darth Vader or someone has to be a Jedi or somebody has to do this. What I mean is, and Marvel does this really well. Like sometimes you tell a Marvel story and someone is directly tied to something else, obviously with Wiccan in Agatha all along, but sometimes it's just, here's a new character that popped up, but contextually, we understand that they live post-blip, or that they were in New York when the Battle of New York happened. There are certain things in the Marvel universe that you can say. When Spider-Man opened up, when Spider-Man Homecoming, speaking of John Watts, happened, and they recontextualized who the Vulture was by saying this was a guy who wanted to collect all of this alien artifacts from the Battle of New York, that's a great way to tie it to something that we understand and made him a way more compelling villain. So I think even if the big secret is this affluent suburban looking planet has existed in secret and they never had to deal with the Empire, and they were over here and all of the adults are like, don't ever leave this planet because we don't want anybody to know. And then these kids jump into the Star Wars universe where there's pirates and smugglers and all the things that we think of as the Star Wars universe. And even there's a shot of one of the new planets that has the hot springs where we see X-Wings flying over. So well, the New Republic is around. So if the New Republic is like, we want this planet to be a part of the New Republic, and this planet's like, we didn't want to be a part of the Empire, we don't want to be a part of the New Republic, already that's tying it enough to going, oh, this feels like it's in a universe where there's these bigger things happening. I don't need fucking Mandalorian and Grogu to get them out of a jam in episode 5 or anything like that. But I do think that as Star Wars is struggling to figure out their way forward, it is contextualizing everything within, this is how the government works in this universe. This is how a post-First Order universe, or in this case, a pre-First Order universe. Yeah, a pre-First Order universe exists. So there's a way to sort of contextualize it while still telling original stories. And I think for Star Wars to maintain itself, they need to be able to say, here's why these new characters on a brand new adventure are doing this, because the First Order is on the rise, or in the remnants of the First Order, these people did this, without tying it to specific characters or storylines.
I agree with you there that the story, even though it is separate and its own thing, it does have responsibilities to the timeline that have to match up.
Responsibilities to the timeline and using big events as sort of tentpole moments to sort of build around. That's kind of what I mean more than, one of them better be a Jedi. Where's Grogu?
That kid's name is going to be Neil Rebo.
Absolutely.
No, they have officially confirmed that he is not the same species as Max Rebo.
Oh, look at that.
You know what? Help us out. A song.
Well, also, Star Wars. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Johnny.
I want to reiterate this. The style, man. That is style, son. I love seeing style in Star Wars. That is unheard of. So I love it.
Well, and like another thing that I actually was intrigued by this trailer is that the parents very clearly have a bigger role to play.
Yes, agreed, Mike. I meant to say that. Agree with you 100%. Clearly, it's not just the kids. The parents are going after the kids as well, and I love that. Yeah. Great point.
Well, Star Wars Skeleton Crew, the first 2 episodes drop on December 3rd on Disney+.
Okay, I'm actually looking. I'm excited. I don't care what other people say. I'm excited.
Eat it, fandom. This song's awesome. All right, I'm done.
Don't come for Major Tom, man. That's a great song. All right, let's take a break here, and on the other side, we'll talk that Marvel. Speaking of upcoming stuff, we'll talk some upcoming Marvel Studio stuff right after this.
Do 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 do. Ba 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 ba.
This is good stuff. All right, so let me bring this up here. Disney's upcoming, Marvel Studios' upcoming trailer. There it is. So much. A look ahead here to all the stuff that is coming up. So much was highlighted. We did touch base with Deadpool and Wolverine because, of course, we have to touch base with Deadpool and Wolverine. But we saw What If Season 3 stuff teased, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man animation stuff teased, Daredevil Born Again, about 16 seconds of that, 16 seconds of Ironheart. That is still being released. Eyes of Wakanda was highlighted here. Marvel Zombies, which the three of us remember seeing at Comic-Con like 2 years ago, was highlighted. And Wonder Man, some more stuff. So some first look at Wonder Man with Yahya Abdul-Mateen II and Trevor Slattery, friggin' Ben Kingsley coming back. I'm so excited. So there was a lot to dive into. Michael, your thoughts on everything we got or overall feelings, whatever you want to talk about from this trailer.
Well, first off, who knew when Ben Kingsley played Trevor Slattery, played the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, that character and that reveal was going to sustain itself through a second movie and now a TV series.
Yes.
This character was on nobody's bingo card for surviving in the MCU, and here he is, and I fucking love it. There's so much to talk about here, but I think a couple things, like just overall. One, although yes, we all agree that Marvel does better when they focus on fewer projects, and the idea of having this many projects in 1 year feels like they're flooding the market again. Keep in mind that 3 of these projects are animated projects that they have been working on for at least 3 years. Like, so what we're seeing here is not them rushing to get a bunch of stuff out as much as it's like timing just worked out so that they happen to have a fuck ton coming out this year because the animated shows are finally ready.
Right.
How do we even... Okay, Daredevil Born Again looks great. Everything about Daredevil Born Again looks like they have nailed it. Muse looks very scary. Kingpin coming back strong. It looks like they're sort of adapting, even though it is called Born Again, it looks like they're sort of adapting a bit of the Dark Reign comic where Wilson Fisk became mayor. And it kind of gets the vibe that one of the reasons, I mean, I know it seems crazy that a convicted felon could be elected into office, but it does seem that he might likely be running on a campaign that says I need to clean up the streets for all these vigilantes. If you run on a campaign that says the Punisher is dangerous and I'm going to help you stop having people like Frank Castle on the street, you probably get to be mayor. And so I think that there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. Just all of it looks really, really cool.
Do you want me to list them again?
Yeah, no, you don't need to list them. There's just so much to talk about. So like Daredevil feels great to me. I'm very, very excited about it. I really hope they nail it. What was Ironheart. Ironheart, I've heard mixed things about. I've heard that the reason we haven't seen it yet is because Marvel wasn't happy with it. I've heard people say that they were going to try and shelve it because it was so bad. But I really like Riri Williams, and I really think the suit in the show looks a fuck ton better than the suit looked in Wakanda Forever. So I'm kind of like, I'm glad they got rid of that suit because everything that they showed between both her and Anthony Ramos, like it looks great. Like it looks like what we want to see, which is this is a universe with no Tony Stark, but this girl can be the new Tony Stark and this suit looks fucking great. So, and even just the whole concept of her trying to sort of step into doing what she wants to do, but Anthony Ramos saying, hey, people like us, like we gotta bend the rules a little bit. I mean, it feels like there's a compelling story there. The animation style on Spider-Man looks really, really cool. So I'm really intrigued by that. The animation style for the Eyes of Wakanda series looks stunning. Like in the 2 or 3 shots they showed, I was like floored by it. And then What If I'm excited about, and Marvel Zombies, I'm glad that they're sticking with the same animation style as What If. Just like because Marvel Zombies so iconically was in that style for the episode that we saw, and I'm glad they're just carrying that on. And it looked like in the little bit we saw of all those things, it all looked really, really good to me. Oddly, and I don't know how to be, Wonder Man has me the most excited.
Yeah.
For a couple reasons. One, the Ben Kingsley of it all just makes me laugh. Two, Yahya Abdul-Mateen is like fucking A+ actor.
Yeah.
Three, and this probably has a lot to do with the fact that I am clearly a giant WandaVision and Agatha All Along fan, and I can't wait for Vision Quest. And Simon Williams in the comics is the guy that was like in the love triangle with Wanda and White Vision. And there's like, so like when I'm looking at the map of the characters that I'm very invested in right now and wanting Wanda to come back and having White Vision kind of figuring out his feelings, adding in this character who is very clearly supposed to be a part of this whole story at this point, having his show come out after Agatha All Along, but before Vision Quest, it's tickling that Marvel itch that I hope he fits into that part of the universe. And I'm just excited to have this new character to explore, and the way they're adapting the story to feel like you're an actor who's in a show about a superhero in the Marvel like it all is very intriguing and has that. This feels very different. It feels like a big swing in the way that WandaVision and Agatha All Along were. So all in all, I think they did a really good job of, between the goodwill they have of Deadpool and Wolverine being doing as well as it did, Agatha All Along being as well received as it was, this trailer coming out kind of laying the groundwork for this is what Marvel TV is going to be next year, while we also are looking forward to Brave New World, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four. It's shaping up to be, this is going to be exciting for Marvel fans.
Yeah, Shannon, what are your thoughts? I mean, we have shots of Daredevil. We got more of the Daredevil Born Again stuff. As Michael mentioned, we get the animation style for Spectacular Spider-Man, Eyes of Wakanda here as well. We get some Wonder Man action and shots of Muse that look really unsettling and scary. And we get some more with Ironheart here. So your thoughts on what stood out to you from this trailer? What do you want to discuss? What are your feelings on it?
I mean, Daredevil Born Again, that is the most no-brainer of all of everything that we're getting. The decision that they made halfway through production to kind of like, nope, the Netflix series is canon. This is, yep, it's a part of it. We're going to build off of that. I think that was probably a really, really smart choice. Yeah, everything in Muse does look scary. Anytime Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio get to sit down and act opposite each other, it's electric. So I'm excited about that one. Ironheart, I kind of compare to She-Hulk, and I think Ironheart will work out better, at least from a technical standpoint, because one of the big dings that She-Hulk had were the inconsistency of the effects. And it doesn't matter how good that story is, when it pulls you out, it pulls you out. Based off of the trailer, it looks like they have done a very, very good job on those suits.
Yeah.
I mean, and I do agree with Vogel. I thought the Ironheart suit in Wakanda Forever didn't look great when it was practical. Like, they did have a practical suit for a little bit, for a couple of shots. It looked really bad, looked really wonky. This one does look cool. In terms of the content, who knows? I mean, I think where there is smoke, there is fire. And when folks talk about that, we didn't quite stick the landing, we'll see what happens. But I mean, again, despite the fact that she didn't feel wholly necessary in Wakanda Forever, I did like Riri Williams, and I hope the show turns out well. Wonder Man is the one that I am the most curious about, because I actually know a few folks who worked on it, didn't have the best experience. But looking at what they're giving us,
you mean when they shot it and went back and finally finished it, or do you mean when they initially were shooting it, had to stop and then came back? When did they work? Oh, both. Okay. All right.
And granted, I mean, you, as an actor, you can go on and it can just be a bad day on set. Like, that happens. People have bad days. But the fact that it was more than one person, I'm like, okay, we'll see what happens. Maybe it turns into a brilliant show, though. The fact that it is so different, that is the thing that I like, that you are dealing with a guy who wants to be an actor who also gets powers. Like, I think that is a lot of fun. Seeing Trevor Slattery behind that ring light, the amount of times mine is set up right here. I mean, the whole inside baseball actor Hollywood thing, I'm like, that's a lot of fun. Will that connect to people? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Ben Kingsley is super funny. Yahya Abdul-Mateen is a great actor. That shot you had of him with the red glasses, kind of harkening back to that one look where he's got the kind of the red coat on. that seems like it's a lot of fun. Vogel and I talked about this because the font of Wonder Man that looks almost a little Wonder Years-ish. I'm like,
Yeah.
I hate that font.
Really?
Oh, I hate it. I hate it. It's so boring.
Okay.
It's so boring, but again, maybe they're using it for a specific purpose. But I am very, very curious about Wonder Man. But I'm excited to see Yahya Abdul-Mateen and Ben Kingsley work together. Because again, who knew that Trevor Slattery coming out of Iron Man 3, when you got that All Hail the King short, when they used to do those Marvel one-shots, we got to see him again. The fact that we're getting him again and again, I'm like, oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
The design for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, awesome. Like, I love that this is a different Spider-Man. Like, at one point they were saying this is not pre-MCU Spider-Man. This is a different This is a different world, a different universe. The analog design that they have for his outfit, I'm like, that's fantastic. Like, I think that looks super, super cool. The animation for Eyes of Wakanda, the idea of its Wakandan warriors through time trying to retrieve these, vibranium artifacts that have gotten out. Again, I think that as a story, that kind of sounds like a no-brainer. I'm like, man, that does not sound difficult to execute, but at the same time, it sounds like it's going to be really, really compelling. And then What If, like, for all of the flack that Phase 4 and Phase 5 gets, one of the things I'm most excited about with the third season of What If is to see some of those Phase 4 characters that have connected. Like, I'm really excited to see Shang-Chi as a cowboy. I'm excited to see Red Guardian. I'm excited to see the Sam Wilson version of Cap. And there it is, Captain Carter.
Come on.
And then Marvel Zombies. I mean, I didn't know, like, this had to be pointed out to me via the internet, but to see Blade as the Fist of Khonshu for this universe, I'm like, that's just freaking cool. I hope we get to see Blade in live action one day, but for right now, I'm like, that's a really cool way to utilize Blade for the time being. So across the board, I thought everything looked great. There are things that I'm more excited for, but there's nothing that I'm like, nope, looks like it's going to suck.
I mean, you guys have pretty much nailed it. I loved this. Really stood out to me. This is something I've never seen before, this style of animation, and it got me super excited because obviously we got to sit through the panel when this was kind of announced and then teased and what have you, but this really stood out to me as something that kind of excites me in the style that it reminds me a lot of, remember Justice League International? It has that kind of interesting, feels realistic, yet still very much animated. And I kind of like that combo. So I'm down with it. The Eyes of Wakanda stuff looked badass. We didn't get a lot of it, but I did enjoy what we got. Shannon, you're right to point out the glass. I mean, he almost looks like The Weeknd in this shot, which I think is on purpose to give you that energy and vibe of the kind of coolness that he is eliciting here in this role. And him and Ben Kingsley, that's the mark of a great actor. He has chemistry, whether he's with Christian Loken in a terrible medieval film and Michelle Rodriguez, or if he's working on a big Marvel project with anybody, he brings the right amount of performance and chemistry with whoever he's working with. And that speaks volumes about Ben, regardless of what regardless of what people say. But I got to say, this did stand out to me. I was now on board after seeing some of the clips here, seeing Anthony Ramos and the work he's doing. And so I kind of I'm on board now with this to see what it's going to be. What if looked great. Marvel Zombies, I'm like, okay, fine. I didn't read the run. I don't have any kind of connection to it, but it looks cool. So it'll be fun to see it in the end. But this overall, as Michael was saying, it's about getting you excited for what's coming. And although it may feel like a lot, it looks like a lot that's good. And so I'm excited, right? And so it only feels a lot when it's bad. And Daredevil Born Again looks awesome.
It's the like I read an article recently, maybe it was Forbes or Variety, I forget what it was, but it was like superhero fatigue is a made up word. It's a buzzword used in articles to talk about things because like nobody actually has superhero fatigue.
No.
The second we like something, we're like, fuck it, where's more? Anybody who's obsessed with Agatha all along, she leaves and says with Billy, let's go find Tommy. No one has superhero fatigue. We have bad movie fatigue. We have bad project. Like I have Venom fatigue. I have Sony fatigue. Right. But I don't have superhero fatigue. And I think this trailer really tapped into that. And, like, look, to what we were talking about with the Skeleton Crew trailer and how Star Wars can tell stories that fit into the universe without slavishly giving me fan service of everything. It's like
No.
Riri Williams is building a suit that is 100% inspired by the biggest superhero in the Marvel universe having his suit of armor. Trevor Slattery is a character that I can tell you this side character's journey from being an actor who was hired to be the Mandarin, who then got captured by the Mandarin and now is in Hollywood. Like, so these little things, this is when Marvel does it right, these little connections, these little things to the side that allow you to tell a whole new story in the universe. That's what they do really, really well when they do it right. So, and again, Born Again, taking the energy of the Netflix show and bringing it into the MCU, if they do it successfully, and making Wilson Fisk the mayor of New York in the MCU, if that is indeed where it seems like it's going.
Yeah, totally.
Wilson Fisk being the mayor of New York in the MCU is a big deal. Like, that's really, really cool. So they've definitely got me back on board from where we were like this time a year ago. And I hope they continue. I hope 2025 is leading up to Doomsday, Secret Wars, Spider-Man 4. I hope they claw their way back and we get back to being excited while we also get excited about the launch of the DC universe.
Yeah, and speaking of the DC universe, that's very similar, right? The Lex Luthor stuff where he's he runs for president, so it's not something that's like totally out of the realm of possibility of existing. So
they're both bald.
The supervillain is president. That's crazy.
Who would ever
would do that? Lex Luthor as president? Why would you vote for him? That seems insane.
I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. All right,
Captain Marvel, Shazam in the Justice League animated series supporting Lex Luthor's run for presidency. When would that ever happen in the real world? I don't know. That seems crazy.
Good point, Mike. Speaking of which, go out and vote, people. All right. Anyway, let's move on to this situation here. Agatha all along, what a fantastic way it wrapped up those last 2 episodes. If you want to see our spoiler review or listen to our spoiler review, it's available on this channel or on our Geek Buddies podcast feed. But we should highlight how well it did overall. The second last episode of Agatha all along hit 4.6 million views in its first day of streaming, and that puts episode 8 nearly 10% above the 4.2 million views it achieved with episode 7. Episode 9 dropped the same night, hit 3 million views on its first day of availability here. And it noted, and this it overall led to a 35% increase from the series premiere. So that means episode 1 was around 3.1 million, although Disney and Lissue reported a total of 9.3 million views for episode 1, but that was over 7 days. So the fact that it has jumped up as much as it has, I think this speaks volumes to pushing back against a lot of people, like over at Forbes. I can't remember the article writer's name, but saying like this is destined to be the least watched least watched MCU show, and clearly that is not the case. It is blown up over the last 2 episodes, and as Michael said, not because they're superhero, because it's good, and not the superhero fatigue. When it's good, people will watch it, and clearly the word of mouth got out that it was getting better and getting good. And so people tuned in to watch. And now we're excited about where we're going. So, gentlemen, your thoughts on the ratings? And do we have enough time to do our rankings of these MCU shows? Or should we save this for a Geek Bite? Up to you guys at where we're at time-wise.
I mean, I don't know if I can rank all of them, but I can certainly give you my top 5.
All right. Where are you at, Mike, on this? Are you good with that?
We can do a top 5 Marvel TV shows for sure.
Okay. All right.
As far as Agatha doing great, I think it's great. Like and again, like I'm kind of, I know that, everyone is like, oh, you guys are just obsessed with the Disney stuff. Like I love when Star Trek shows do well. I love when DC shows do, like when something is good, I'm glad that it does well because I want to encourage good stuff. So the fact that Penguin is getting the accolades that it's getting, the fact that Agatha did so well, the fact that Venom is not doing well, to me, this is the way the world should work. Good things from good creative teams that tell great stories doing well make me happy. I really enjoyed The Acolyte, and I totally get why it didn't do well. I totally get why it didn't connect. We've talked about that a ton. So I'm sad that we're not going to get more Acolyte, but I also think that that makes sense. It was not good enough to warrant that. So I think that's great. I'm thrilled, and I'm obsessed with where it's going next. I think you said this, Johnny, was it in our review. As much as the Fantastic Four is the first family of Marvel Comics, they are coming after the Maximoffs, and I think you could make a strong case that the Maximoffs are the first family of the MCU.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Shannon, your thoughts on the ratings, and then give us your top 5.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that they let those numbers out, because that's not something that always happens with not just Disney Plus, but with a lot of streamers. Like, you don't necessarily know how well a show did. I think demonstrating that this show did connect, because in the realm of the people are over superheroes, having something come out that was so tangential to what Marvel, what you assume Marvel is going to be, like a villain that my guess prior to WandaVision, people that didn't read comics had no idea who Agatha Harkness was.
Oh yeah,
the fact that they were able to give her a story and make it so good and so relatable and just was able to connect, that's awesome. And you hope that they're able to do that again, because there are so many great characters, not just in Marvel, in DC. I mean, there are so many great characters out there that, if they're in the right hands, can create amazing stories. So I think it's awesome. And I'll be very curious again, like when WandaVision finished, like, nope, not going to be a season 2. It's like, well, could we maybe? Well, okay, we're not going to do a season 2, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to spin off. Yeah. And so could there be an Agatha all along where she and Joe Locke are out there looking for Tommy? Absolutely. Or that story could take place in another film or another series. But just the fact that they have this embarrassment of riches in terms of characters is awesome.
Okay. So then what's your top 5, buddy?
Well, number 1 for me is still Hawkeye.
Wow.
I loved Hawkeye. I love that it's a Christmas rewatch. At my soul, I'm an action guy, and the action that they have in Hawkeye, it still has one of the best chases in the MCU. Not on Disney Plus, but in the MCU. Right on. Number 2 is WandaVision. Okay. Even though the finale was affected by COVID, what we got and the fact that that was the first one out the gate, fantastic. WandaVision is always one that I can go back and revisit. Right after WandaVision is Agatha All Along.
Wow. Okay.
I think WandaVision is episode 3 or episode 4 where it really took off. I mean, it took Agatha to episode 4, episode 5, but it takes off, and you were just so invested. And again, this is going to be a Halloween rewatch. Number 4, number 5, Loki season 1, Loki season 2. Tom Hiddleston is just a captivating performer. Season 2, adding Kiwi Kwan. I mean, Loki's another one of those shows that, aside from having an incredible theme that I love to play in my car, Loki's one of those stories that you can just go back. I love to go back and watch certain scenes of Loki in both seasons. So those are my top 5. Okay.
I will go real quick, Mike, and then you can wrap us up here. First of all, the ratings, no surprise. Happy to see it. Hope it continues. But I think that, as Michael was alluding to earlier, that clearly shows you people will show up if you make good content and people are interested to see this content. So it's great to see that. And it pushes back all these people with toxic approaches to Marvel and Disney and Star Wars and all this stuff, who make money off their toxicity rather than being authentic with their points of views, for the most part, in my opinion. So I like that it's a way to use to fight back against that kind of stuff, to make sure this good stuff gets through. My 5, I didn't do what Shannon did. To me, they're all combined. So I have Loki number 1, both seasons. That's my number 1. I have WandaVision at number 2. I cheated and added an animated one. X-Men 97, I will put in there at number 3.
That's not cheating.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I didn't know what the parameters were.
Animation counts as television too, guys. It's not a cheat.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. My number 4 is What If. I just love What If. Honestly, I go back and rewatch What If all the time. And then my fifth one is Hawkeye. I'm with Shannon. I love Hawkeye. I can't wait to pop it on again. As soon as I decorate the office, which should be this weekend with Christmas stuff, Hawkeye is popping up on for me to watch as well. And Agatha is right there at 6. Like, it is right there at 6. I think it's still too soon for me to assess it in a top 5. But once I watch it, I think a few more times, it might move up. We will see. Michael, your top 5 here.
Yeah, so like Johnny, I combine seasons. I don't make a distinction between a season 1 and season 2. If the series is great, unless it had a giant dip, which neither of these did. So number 1 is WandaVision. WandaVision is still number 1. I think it's going to be hard for them to ever beat it. I think WandaVision is so original. I think it kicked off both Phase 4 and Marvel TV in such a great way. And Wanda Maximoff and Vision are just like the absolute best. Like, WandaVision is A+. It's hard to beat it. Number 2 is X-Men 97, because honestly, who knew we were going to get the best X-Men entertainment that we've gotten in years in a retro callback to a 90s favorite. Like, they took what they did, what we loved about the 90s, plussed it. Episode 5 of X-Men 97. I think I said this with Agatha. I think X-Men episode 5 of X-Men and episode 7 of Agatha are the 2 best episodes of Marvel television, singular episodes that we've gotten. Absolutely X-Men 97. Then Agatha All Along is number 3 for me, guys. I mean, right now I'm still living in that afterglow of loving the series. Maybe it's going to go down eventually, but right now, like, the way they expanded Agatha's story, the reveals about the Witch's Road, introducing Billy Maximoff in the coolest possible way. Like, I loved all of it. Yeah. Hawkeye is number 4. I watch it every year. It's my Thanksgiving watch. I do love it. I think it does everything right in the way that I want a Marvel show to do things right. And then number 5 is What If? Seasons 1 and 2. Yeah. What If? I think it was a toss up between that and Loki season 1 and 2. They're sort of neck and neck. But if I really am being honest with myself, as good as I think Loki is, and I do think it's fantastic, the rewatchability of What If, the joy of putting on any one of those episodes from both seasons and just enjoying the Marvel characters that we love doing things that they would never do is just, they really did nail that vibe. So yeah, that's my top 5.
Yeah. Dark or strange. Come on. I mean, I get it. All right, there you go. That's our show here. Thank you all so much for joining us, whether you're listening to us or watching us. We appreciate you madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at Geek_Buddies. On Instagram, at @the_Geek_Buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Roca, it is at The Roca Says.
Mikey?
We would like it if you smash that like button below and subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page to check out all the amazing content he has got there. You can also leave your comments. What do you think of Skeleton Crew? What do you think of Major Tom and Hutties? What do you think of all these Marvel TV shows? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some comments and some stars there so we go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
And most of all, let us know what your rankings are. What are your top 5? I think Mike and Shannon and I will really enjoy hearing what you all list as your top 5 MCU shows, and keep it civil, give your points of views, and have some fun with it. We're looking forward to it.
Let my buddies know in the comments that the animated shows count.
You know, I put it in my top 5. All right, anyway. Thank you all so much. I put 2 animated in my top 5. You guys are the best. Take care of yourselves. Be well, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of The
Geek
Buddies! Hey!